for the city of South Fulton. It's going to be very unusual today because we have two members out who are going to be stacked in for their participation. Councilwoman Willis and Councilwoman Rao. They're going to be stacked in. So, however, I would like to, Ms. Attorney, Madam Attorney.
Yes, Mayor. I muted it.
Are you opining that the procedures we're taking tonight in conducting this meeting are legal under the laws of Georgia, any other law, in terms of Skyping the meeting?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Are you also opining that under such law that we can, that even though they're absent, that they have the ability to vote and be counted in a quorum?
Yes, Mayor. They have
Okay.
the full ability to participate
All right.
via teleconference. with the
Thank you
city.
so much, Madam Attorney. Okay, Mr. Clerk, would you call roll, please?
Mayor William Bill Edwards.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Baker.
Present.
Councilmember Captain Rao. Did you turn your mic? Let's give them feedback. Councilmember Rao, are you present?
Ugo.
Councilmember.
Okay,
there she is. Councilmember Carmelita Gomes. Councilmember Helen Z. Willis. Ms. Willis, are you present?
Yes, and I need you all to leave it off mute so we can hear what's going on, please.
I guess when we leave there, they
Councilmember Nari McGillian. And Councilmember Rosie Jackson.
Present.
Councilmember Clee.
here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
thank you. First item, Mr. Clerk.
The first item on the agenda is the Aerotropolis Atlanta presentation given by James Shannon.
Elder, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm not in the meeting, I hear you.
All right. Good evening,
I
everyone.
understand it's gonna work.
Hold 1 minute.
No problem.
Did we test this or what did we do?
We're beginning to test it just as 4:30 and 5 arrived with the system that's plugged in from Fulton County.
Okay, so what is the issue with?
Right now, the issue is feedback.
Well, we must proceed. If y'all can get Neymar in here, somebody to control the feedback, as long as they can hear and respond to what I'm looking for. Go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you all for allowing me to present today before you the good messages from the Aerotropolis Atlanta Alliance.
We're gonna make it, go ahead.
Okay, all right. We'll push through. I know I've got time. I've been pushed. So as a result, we'll just transition right into the presentation here. Aerotropolis Atlanta Alliance, we have been formed since 2014. We are a public-private partnership that is focused right here in the region of South Fulton and Clayton County. And we are very adamant about the participation and collaboration from the city of South Fulton, which brings me before you today. Ready for the slide. Thought I had to click them, Mayor.
I thought you did too.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. All right. As mentioned, we are a 501c6 public-private partnership, and we currently boast 31 board members. Currently, we have your big corporations to small corporations that have joined our initiatives at all levels. And as a result, from a public perspective, we've had the fortunate ability to bring on College Park, Hateville, City of East Point, now Union City, Chattahoochee Hills, Palmetto, and City of Fairburn. And our only city that we're hoping to now advocate for is the city of South Fulton. That also brings me before you today. Our organization started out as a function of the Porsche Cars North America relocation efforts in the Metro Atlanta region. As a result of the collaboration from all of our cities, both public and private, the ARC and Georgia Power saw an opportunity to galvanize that synergy. And as a result, we moved forward with a blueprint, which roughly charged us about $275,000, but allowed us to put together a focus and a strategy for the region, if you will. And that's how we were able to now form as a 501c6 and structure our name under the Aerotropolis Atlanta Alliance. For those who are wondering, Aerotropolis is coined from the name of Airport City. It is a concept that is fastly approaching the United States, but it is definitely studied abroad in Paris, who are our friends, and we travel a good bit and share ideas, intelligence trips, and also Beijing, and now in the States. Okay, I'm not sure if this one is working.
Here we go.
I'm trying to keep my time here.
I'll keep on working.
Okay, there we go. All right, our key objectives for the Aerotropolis is to market the assets within the Aerotropolis area for growth and new development. We also look to advance workforce development initiatives for member communities and businesses. We also look to influence cross-jurisdictional communication and partnership, and also enhance the overall perception of the area. The key note to this objective slide is to really market the assets within the area as we work with state project managers, Georgia Power of the lights, and to also really build the area as we look to attract new businesses and development, and that's in regards to workforce. So workforce development is a major anchor of ours. We want to really stabilize and uplift our community while we look to build it from a commerce perspective, whether that's new corporate investments or new mixed-use style development. Partnership and collaboration is a very key ingredient for the Aerotropolis. That is truly our mantra, partnership and collaboration. Currently, we boast the partnerships for the current local chambers, South Fulton Chamber, ATL Chamber, Clayton County Chamber, and the Metro Atlanta Chamber. And that's really an effort to really focus on small business development and also strategies around how do we continue to attract new businesses to the area while also retaining our current businesses, right? How do we uplift the current businesses that are already bringing jobs and philanthropy to our backyard? So we leverage our partnership to focus on strategies all throughout the Aerotropolis as it correlates to small business. During the blueprint study, which took forever it seems like, we were able to identify top 5 markets of industries. And those industries all correlate as it is in the airport area. We're talking a 25-mile radius. So you're talking food and agribusiness, multimedia production, bio-life science, logistics, aerospace. I don't think it's a stranger to anyone here that these 5 industries may have played a very key component into the success makeup of the Aerotropolis. And as a result, these are industries that we're targeting when we're not only local, but when we are abroad on trips, whether it's Beijing, Paris, Shanghai, you name it. I mentioned earlier the effort around small business development and retention. As a offset of our partnership with the Metro Atlanta Chambers, we were able to forge a new initiative called our Small Business of the Month. And those small businesses of the month all fall within the top five target industries. As a result, we've been fortunate to now recognize roughly 5 businesses within the Aerotropolis. Some of them include just down the street here, the Green Manor, with our South Fulton Chamber, Sutherland Food Service, which is a food and agribusiness company in Clayton, and also Ethic, which is a multimedia firm who also manages our site, selected by the ATL Airport Chamber. And so all of those efforts culminate in a strategy around how do we continue to not only retain our businesses that are here, but also how did those companies even come to this area, and how do we utilize that as an attraction method, if you will. So we've had very much so constant dialogue around that concept, and we're now even engaging in workforce development initiatives, where now we're partnering with some of these companies and exploring what their challenges are and figuring out workforce development solutions right here in our backyard. The footprint. We get this question a lot. The Aerotropolis footprint, I consider a 20-mile radius. Some people say, some of our members say 20-mile drive, but it's really a 20-mile radius because if, you know, drive time versus mile time is totally different in Atlanta, right? It could be, you know, an inch or 20 feet, who knows? But the primary focus for the Aerotropolis is the South Fulton area and Clayton County. So make no mistake, South Fulton and Clayton County are our primary focus. So when we're thinking about land use, when we're thinking about marketing, when we're thinking about economic development, this is the territory we're thinking about. This is the front of our mind. Everything else is secondary. So just wanted to make sure everyone understood our primary focus is right here in South Fulton and Clayton County. As a result of our partnership and collaboration, we talked about economic development a good bit. And within the South Fulton region and even parts of Clayton County, we have 4 CIDs that we partner with. Fulton Industrial CID, which I don't have to explain to you guys. South Fulton CID, I don't have to explain that one as well. Airport West and Airport South. I think our committee is fully aware of our CIDs and the partnerships and the role they play in infrastructure, public safety, and wayfinding. I also sit on the board for the Aerotropolis CID and understand the true dynamics that it takes and requires to partner when you're thinking through strategic initiatives around infrastructure and ingress, egress to attract companies and businesses and development. So we partner a ton with our community improvement districts. The organization, we're comprised of committees and collectives. We have a marketing committee. Matter of fact, we just confirmed that Jackson Spalding is going to be leading our marketing efforts. So if you guys are familiar with Jackson Spalding, make no mistake, they are true professionals, and so they're getting ready to take us to the next level. Investor and Finance Committee, which really operates the nuts and bolts, if you will, the operation of the business or our organization. And also Planning and Transportation Committee, which really correlates with our CIDs. And we look at areas outside of the CIDs to really market and concentrate. I know Bill would like that. Our collectives consist of our economic, workforce, and education. That's really where we hang our hat as an organization within our collectives, in particular workforce development. So that is a huge, huge initiative of ours. And we're going to talk through those collectives. I even brought up some of these facts during a town hall meeting that I shared with the city of South Fulton, new city manager Odie, and Carmelita, who were participants, and Helen, who may be on the phone. And I want to share some of those statistics with you guys. In this area, we've got about 180,000 employed people in this area. Of that 180,000, we've got about 85% of those workers who actually commute into the area for work. Okay, 85%. We've got about 15% of the workers who actually work and employed in the area. 15%. And of that, we also have about 73% of the people who actually work here commute out. So you've got a constant ingress, egress, if you will, for workers. There is no true live, work, play concept that has been really shaped, formed, and strategically thought through in regards to South Fulton. So many people are coming in, many people are going out. So our focus is how do we change that dynamic? How do we incorporate more people who actually live here, work here, play here? That's how you're able to really utilize those disposable dollars that go between businesses, so on and so forth. As a result, we've been fortunate to have our next big development happen with the city of College Park. This is really a strategy of the Aerotropolis is to really try and bring more mixed-use development concepts to the area. This project was actually the #1 catalytic site under our blueprint. So if you go back to our blueprint, you'll see that this site was identified as our #1 site. And once the city and our partnership continued to evolve, then they brought us to the table. And so as a result, we were able to forge a partnership and really brainstorm and think through how do we bring this into fruition. And as a result, we now have the approval to now move forward with this new airport city concept. which will be 320 acres filled with office, homes, residence, retail, and hotels. So now this project gives you an idea of what it really means to live, work, play, because now you're going to have jobs, you're going to have communities, you're going to have opportunity, and that's what we're trying to create here. Opportunities to develop the most undeveloped land in the metro Atlanta area, but bringing quality and partnership while we're doing it, true buy-in. So I wanted to make sure to note this, and also as a result, our Economic Development Collective is comprised of all of our EDs in the area. So you now have all of your economic development directors at one table having conversations about how do we strategically move forward in the market. And Councilwoman Willis actually joined us just this past week, and I'm sure she would be able to share some really enlightening information. So there are a lot of developments happening right here in our area. We also, when we talk about economic development, it's several facets. And you know, we talked through workforce, we talked through really the CIDs, which are infrastructures, but there's also a community development concept that needs to be in play. And as a result, through our blueprint, we were able to move forward one of our catalytic projects, which is the Aerotropolis Greenway Plan. I'm sure you guys are familiar. I'm sure we've probably had Kirsten in here talking about it. But this multimodal plan here will allow for walkability, bikes, trails. When you're able to create a sense of community where people feel that now this is a home and they could walk, play, do everything they want, then they typically stay here and spend their dollars. So this Greenway plan is really kind of what we call the belt line on steroids, if you will, where we're trying to now create a trail system throughout the Aerotropolis. And we've put a tremendous amount of time and effort and energy towards this concept, so much to the point where we're now looking at hiring a full-time person to manage this Greenway plan. So we are committed to make this come to fruition. And a lot of this plan runs right through the city of South Fulton. More sobering statistics. This area, the airport area, has an unemployment rate that is 50% higher of our peers across airport areas. That is a sobering statistic, and it tells you the fight that we have to continue to move forward and really bring this community, this area, to the next level. And when you've got an unemployment rate as high as it is for this market, then you've got to create solutions to combat it. Another sobering statistic, we've got 50% higher when it comes to impoverished families. So you've got families who are really struggling, not only paycheck to paycheck, but they're just struggling, period. And so how do you now elevate a community from the current state to the next level? And our thought process of solving that issue is workforce development. Workforce development has been our true anchor for the organization really since inception. And we've, matter of fact, I even have Councilman Khalid here on the stage, on the presentation far left. He's been a participant of ours, and he's had an opportunity to see how we're maneuvering as an organization. We've had some early success, but we're nowhere even close to getting where we want to be. And we would love to really figure out how do we better partner with the city of South Fulton and its residents on identifying opportunities for workforce development and placing them with job seekers or end results, if you will. We just hired a full-time workforce development director who eats, sleeps, drinks workforce development. So his job is to work with corporations around their challenges in workforce, and then also, and we're talking free or at no cost services, and then also working with individuals who are seeking employment. So he helps find placement for those who are seeking employment. If they need training, he finds the training and then helps their end result. So we've got a person who's dedicated 100% of the time to workforce. So far we've had some good success. We've had roughly 5, we're really 6 now, cohorts. We've trained almost 90 people, and we've got roughly a 90 to 95% placement rate. That's all on us. That's us deep diving into the community. These are all local people. And we're trying to really give them the skill set to now meet the demand that we're hoping to create. And if we can create a demand that is more jobs than people, then we got a good problem. Right now, we don't have that problem, so we're trying to create it. And just to note, construction and hospitality are the two industries we've had the most success in the cohorts in. We're now transitioning towards logistics and now movie film production. So we're getting ready to continue to grow and expand our workforce development efforts. Our newest collective is education. Education was something that we all thought about and considered that is extremely important and vital towards the growth and success of this market. And as a result, we were fortunate to have a collective move forward the past 2 years, and we've made a transition since and brought on Dr. Morsees Beasley, who is the superintendent of Clayton County Schools, and we're exploring all types of new strategies with the county. Matter of fact, the last bullet will give you some insight. We also brought on Mayor Ingram for City of East Point, who is our co-chair, who has a long history of education, a major advocate, and we've also, since inception of our collective, partnered with Step Up Atlanta and 100 Black Men of South Metro, and towards their all-male and female initiatives around mentoring. And we've seen some great success. Step Up Atlanta is a new initiative to Atlanta, but they are extremely proven. They are top-notch professionals, and they've done work at Banneker thus far and a few other schools. We also partner extremely with Clayton State University, Dr. Tim Haynes, and we are now in conversations, pretty steady conversations, if you will, with UGA and Georgia Tech. We're working with Georgia Tech now, and Odie presented this during the town hall around an incubator accelerator concept. And so I would love to continue those synergies with the city of South Fulton, who's already working on that idea. You know, who knows what opportunities may present itself, so it's worth exploring for sure. And Odie and I have already talked about this. Also, in regards to education, Fulton County Schools College and Career Academy. Dr. Edwards and I, we've partnered a ton. We're getting ready to take it to the next level with Fulton County Schools College and Career Academy. We're getting ready to plant a big seed for them and become a major resource when it comes to pathways for their college, for their high school students looking to now take their certifications and land an end result job. And that's part of solving that equation, right? How do we keep our people local with local opportunities, where you've got to now partner and find pathways to keep them local? And that's what we're trying to create with our board, along with Fulton County Schools College and Career Academy. And through that partnership, we've been able to now elevate Clayton County's ability to now create a college and career academy. So when you guys hear about their academy starting out, just know that it started right here with us. Okay, we also noticed that there was a tremendous need around philanthropic efforts. And as a result, the board decided to move forward with establishing our own 501c3. So now we also have a C6, but we also have a C3. This is the Aerotropolis Atlanta Alliance Foundation. We have elected officers. Carol Waddy with Chick-fil-A Foundation is our chair. We also have a vice chair, and Natalie Martin with Duke Realty. Julia Strayhorn with PNC is our treasurer. And Katrina DeBerry with Community Foundation of Greater Atlanta, which has a tremendous amount of resources, is our secretary. And so our goal and strategy around the C3 is to really target a few components. Right now, we've identified literacy around third grade specifically, and early childhood. So literacy is going to be a major component of ours. We're working with Fulton County Schools now around the very concept. And then also financial literacy. Being a former banker, you know, and growing up, we didn't talk about money. And so now I feel it's a duty as an organization in our community to now educate our people about money matters. How to, if we're going to now create jobs, if we're now going to elevate them with more pay, well, now they need to understand how to manage that money, right? So financial literacy and early childhood literacy are early components of our C3, and housing. We're talking about strategies around housing, whether it's blighted housing, affordable housing, housing has been a very much so consistent topic around C3 efforts, and I'll share with you, Georgia Power has already hinted at a very strong contribution, if you will, to get us started there. All right, we're social media friendly, so follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We love to have you guys follow us and keep up with all the many works we're doing. I will share with you, this is just the tip of the iceberg of a lot of the works that we've done, but I wanted to make sure that we shared the nuts and bolts here today. With that being said, how did I do, Mayor?
You did good, Shannon. You did good.
All right.
Aerotropolis is doing a good job. I want to state that. You know, getting all the vital points that we need in our community. Any questions for Mr. James? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing, Councilman Davis?
The page with the different industries, is there a plan where those industries would be located? That's the first question. And then the second one is the bio life sciences, I believe is one. Talk to me a little bit about what the bio life sciences would include.
Would include? Okay, so that could be, BioLife is, you've got a ton of sectors that fall into BioLife, but it's really biology and life science. And so when you take those two industry components, you have a lot of industries that work near the airport who ship all pharmaceuticals, various products, if you will. And so their proximity, all in BioLife science, is really a 5 to 7, 8 mile radius. And so what we quickly notice is that from a cargo perspective, they are shipping a ton of product all over the United States. And so they're really in almost a manufactured type hub, if you will. And so what we quickly noticed through our partnership with Hartsfield is how do we now attract more companies in that industry who are looking to ship domestically and internationally with convenience of Hartsfield. And so that was really kind of how we tied in the BioLife, if you will. The second piece that you asked in regards to landing, and I'm so glad you asked that, because the concept for the Aerotropolis is not that we want projects to go to a certain area. We're looking at the region. So when we're contacted by state project managers and they hit us with areas that, what their criteria are, then what we look to do is figure out, okay, conversations with Mayor Edwards or Odie, and we talk about exactly what the city's looking for, and then understanding what areas exist for opportunities, right? Understanding what land is available based on the current zoning, and then what incentives are also included as a result. And once we get that information, we figure out what areas within the Aerotropolis, not just 2 or 3. We'll look at South Fulton and Clayton, and we figure out how do we get as many touches as possible. So we like to at least get 3 or 4 options versus 1 or 2. So no real rhyme or reason, it's just based on the needs and the areas of opportunity that exist within South Fulton. So for us to get better understanding of what opportunities exist in South Fulton, it allows us to be a lot more effective to bring more opportunities to South Fulton, because then we'll know.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Helen Willis.
Yes. Yes, my question is, how much is this going to cost the city of South Fulton?
Good question. Good question. Sounds. And that's another thing. I apologize. I should have maybe included our benefits package. The request would be $5,000, which basically gets you on the board, right? What we're confirming is that our cities, there isn't a consideration, because when I send you guys a form, you'll see consideration at $5,000. From a public perspective, it's not a consideration. $10,000 gets you into our executive committee. That's where the nuts and bolts are really driven, to be quite honest with you. And so that's really kind of where I envision the city of South Fulton, either the $5,000 or the $10,000. You guys, I would recommend maybe starting out at 5 to get a feel for how we're operating, how we're maneuvering, and then once you see the value, then you come back and say, well, it's really worth 10. and we want to be at a higher level. So my ask is always never shoot high. I'm a former banker, so I'm a realist. So I would say somewhere about 5,000 would be the ask.
Okay, and that will be on an annual basis.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Great question. Just to add, and I think to add to Councilwoman's question, our strategy is to act as a region, not as a single city or single area. Our goal is to act as a region. And so if you remember our players who are at the table, it allows us to be extremely effective at getting opportunities. And now how do we effectively move through the region to grow versus just a single city?
Well, one last question. I know that in the meeting, can you tell my colleagues a little bit about the plans to look at facilitating a regional land use plan throughout the region, because that has been a point of contention for the city of South Fulton as it relates to how our neighboring municipalities may be viewing land use and how it impacts neighbors.
Excellent question. You can tell she was in our economic development collective, right? So land use has been a very hot topic for us. I will tell you, we currently have a study, an MTAP study going right now with the Tri-Cities. We started out with the Tri-Cities because their dynamics similar and they were all part of the organization, so it made sense. And the goal was to look through their land use, their zoning and permitting processes, if you will, and to make recommendations based on overall experience in other areas to create a sense of uniformity, if you will. So that's just one aspect around really permitting to a great extent, but actual regional land use plan has been in constant conversation between the Aerotropolis and Atlanta Regional Commission. As you guys know, the ARC are juggernauts when it comes down to those type of studies and plans, if you will. And so their task to us was to really now get the buy-in from the cities, because anytime we take a regional approach towards land use, we've got to have your buy-in. Meaning you've got to accept and willing to participate. And so as a new member of the Aerotropolis, then that kind of grants an early access to participating, right? Because you're part of Aerotropolis, and now it's really just a time frame, matter of fact, to now move forward around a regional study of land use. That has been clearly articulated in our blueprint, and that's been one of the, if not number one topics around the current land use and zoning structure as it correlates to today's market, because it's quite outdated. And so I hope I answered your question.
The Tri-Cities are just for benefit.
I'm sorry?
The Tri-Cities, the 3 cities in the Tri-Cities area are.
Oh, Hayesville, College Park, East One. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to take 2 more, and I think it's Councilwoman Guns and Councilwoman Jackson.
I just, thank you for your presentation. Just had a few questions about the College Park project. How long did that take from concept to fruition?
So it took us roughly about almost 9 or 10 months before we got to an actual approval. So from 10 months ago, almost 11 months, was the first meetings, and then the discussions took us about another month or 2 to identify the strategy, and it took us another month or 2 to identify a master developer, and then it took us another few months. If you guys may remember, the Aerotropolis hosted a Biz Now Southside edition, where we marketed this property and opportunity extensively, and we also vetted it with local financial institutions to make sure our master developers can walk and chew gum. And yeah, and once we got confirmation on the developer, the strategy, the concept, to present it to council, it was about 10 months. But this is 320 acres. We're talking huge complexity here. So it was a big big win, because now we're talking $1 billion worth of investment. We're talking 7,000 to 10,000 jobs. So anything worth having is going to take a little time. So we wanted to get it right.
Okay, Ms. Jackson?
And then also College Park owns the land. I want to make sure everyone knows that.
You might have said it and I just didn't hear, when you were talking about the cost, you said 5,000 for board and 10,000 for executive committee. What do you feel would be the best for us?
Yeah, 5,000, I think, because the city of South Fulton is a relatively new city, and I know that a few have, kind of seen our workings and what we're doing, I like to under-promise and over-deliver.
But what would that allow us to do?
We would have a board seat, you have voting rights, and you would obviously get marketing rights for everything we're doing. And then obviously you would be privy to, especially being a city, right? We're talking about economic development that gives us a chance to now be privy to being able to navigate more opportunities from a state level. So we're talking state project managers with the economic development, Georgia Power. It just gives us the ability now to truly work as a partner.
Shannon, would you give us a number where, if there are any further questions, they can reach you?
Absolutely. I can be reached at 404-349-2211. I'll also give you my email address, which is s.james@aeroatl.org. I do want to share with you all, we are really quickly trying to move towards a regional land use plan, to be quite honest with you. I sent an email, well, it wasn't me, we had one of our assistants sent an email to the council, mayor and council. I don't know if you guys received it, but we are hosting an event on August the 22nd. It'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Solis Hotel, and we're going to talk about this regional approach. And so I wanted to make sure you all kind of had that. We've paid for it. All we want you to do is just come, park for free, eat free, drink free, let's have a good time, but also learn about what our true strategy is and have a good in-house conversation amongst peers, right?
Thank you, Mr. James.
Thank you, Mayor.
You did a wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
The next item is the fiscal year 2019 budget presentation that's being made by Ms. Sharon Haynes, budget manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, senior managers, and colleagues and visitors to the workshop session. My name is Sharon Haynes. I'm the budget manager for the city of South Fulton, and it is indeed an honor to make this presentation to you this afternoon. So I'm going to begin by highlighting the requirements for municipalities according to the Georgia State Code, that all budgets must Okay, so all municipalities must prepare an annual budget. You must make your budget available for public review, hold public hearings prior to budget adoption, list the sources of revenues and the amount, also expenditure amounts has to be listed by the legal level of control. Then second is the City of South Fulton requirements according to Resolution 2017. You require a balanced budget, that the budget be presented to you, Mayor and Council, at least 2 months prior to the start of the new fiscal year. You require that there be a budget message from the city manager, that the budget be adopted at the legal level of control, that is at the fund department level. You require public notice of revenue and expenditures and public hearing prior to adoption. Thirdly, the requirements or suggestions by the Government Finance Officers Association, and this is a professional association of states and local cities that offers training and best practices for local governments. And so they suggest that in each budget you have the priorities and issues for that budget year, a budget overview of items and trends, an organizational chart, financial policies, the budget process, that's the preparation and review, financial summaries for all funds, including fund balance, revenue sources, capital, debt, department descriptions, and positions. Now I'm going to highlight the roles and responsibilities for the budget. So City Council, your role is to review the budget, to host public hearings, and to vote in approval of the budget. The city manager submits the budget to the City Council. The finance department role is forecasting and projections. Division directors, they're the ones who will estimate their annual requests, identify issues, and suggest solutions. And as budget manager, my role is the coordination of the budget process, financial analysis, and preparation of the budget vote. This slide highlights our budget process for fiscal year 2019. We began with a review of the strategic plans and priorities that you developed back in July of 2017. And then we had a budget overview to our department directors. We developed our capital budget and long-range financial plans. We did some tentative revenue projections. We're currently in the middle of developing our operating budget. And beginning on Saturday, we will start with some open house for the public. These will be hosted by our city manager. Then after that, there will be a transmittal of the budget to you. We anticipate public hearings and then adoption. These forms were used in the preparation of our budget. The capital form was the first one that each director had to complete to justify the request for capital expenditure, the timeline for any projects that he or she was asking for, potential funding source, and impact on operations. And then we had a form to be used for operations, and we asked them in their detailed request to break out travel and training, dues and membership, professional fees, operating supplies, and technology requests. And the third form was from the HR department for departments that would want to request new staffing to give the classification and compensation, as well as we asked for a department description and goals and objectives for the fiscal year 2019. This is a brief calendar of our budget timeline. So officially we began on April 25th with the budget kickoff. Then in May we had the development of our capital budget. Tentative revenue projections were done around June 15th. Between July 6th and 13th, we're anticipating having budget internal reviews. It is our plan to submit to you our budget on July 24th. We're hopeful of an adoption of a millage rate on July 31st and hopefully adoption of the budget on September 11th. These were the strategic goals as per that document that you participated in back in July of 2017 to improve public safety, improve parks and recreation, increase economic development, increase focus on planning and land use, create and implement branding and messaging of the city. So these are the revenue sources that we'll be using to accomplish those goals. Our major revenue sources are taxes, and that's primarily property taxes, sales taxes, insurance tax, and motor vehicle. Then license, which comprises business permits, land use and sign permits, and rates and fees for services rendered by the police, fire, and parks. These are major revenue sources anticipated. We have property taxes, local option sales tax, motor vehicle tax. The blue lines are what was projected in our 2018 when we amended the budget. The orange is where we are year to date, and the gray line is what we're anticipating for adoption for our 2019 budget. This slide further breaks out our tax categories, and you can see that we're very reliant upon property taxes. Our projection is that we'll collect about $40 million if the proposed millage rate is used. Then that's followed by a local option sales tax, and all of our other taxes are basically below $5 million. The priorities and issues that we're hoping to accomplished in FY19 yet, again, that came out of the strategic goals, was improve public safety services, implementation of a strong economic development strategy, to update the city comprehensive plan and plan use, to improve parks and recreation services, and to support technology improvements. And you can see these expenditure functions are basically tied to those priorities, public safety being the biggest category of our planned expenditure, just a little bit about 45%. Then parks and recreation, economic development, branding, capital investment, and debt servicing, something that we must budget for as we have outstanding debt. And the other will include financial and human resources administration services. Budget monitoring. So usually this is best accomplished through utilization of the purchase order system. It allows department directors to approve all purchase orders, and this way they're aware of how much they have spent and what is remaining in their budget. This helps them to keep from overspending. Perpetual review of revenue and expenditures. This way we can monitor that our projected revenues are coming in as we anticipate, and that our expenditures are within the appropriated amounts, and if necessary, if revenues are not coming in as we had hoped, that we make adjustments, possibly come back to you for a budget amendment. There should be monthly financial reports for you as well that basically alert you how we're doing on a month-to-month basis. And finally, the annual financial audit. And now I'll take any questions.
Okay, Mr. Manager, I think that this gives a very good workable idea as to how this process should go and who's responsible for what. I'm sure my colleagues up here may have some little adjustments to it, but I think that it really outlines who's responsible and leads us to a final budget. So I want to thank the staff, for the job. I'll recognize Mr. Khalid and Ms. Gilliard.
I've got two questions and a comment. The first question is, so I see our budget projections they were high, we didn't collect. So our budget, I think, was estimated to be about $65–66 million. What did we actually end up with? What does it look like we're going to end up with?
So if you recall back in May, I think it was, we brought an amended budget to you where we asked you to adjust the projected revenues from 65 million to about 43 million because after the collection of property taxes, we realized we were not going to make that 65 million. So it is our goal that we're going to probably collect in revenue about 45 million by the end of September.
All right. Last budget year, we got presentations. We had a whole day-long workshop where we got presentations from each department. So the fire department made a presentation, Parks and Recs made a presentation. I haven't seen that in this calendar, and I really like that because it's one of the only times that both us as a council and the public got to hear directly from each department what they needed. And so I'm wondering, is that coming back? Is that gone? Like, how do we get that back?
So generally the process is, because the budget until it is submitted to you is the city manager's budget, and so those department directors would usually make those presentations to him before he submits a budget to you. But I guess the option is there if that is required. I'm sure it can be accommodated.
Yes, I'm going to urge the manager and I'm just going to urge the manager and the council to let those departments make those public presentations. I think it's important.
I think one of the public hearings is a great time to do it, to have it done. I agree with you, Mr. President. I think it's a great time to do it.
Last thing, I don't want to take a
You
lot of time.
must make a comment.
Well, no, you said it. So those hearing dates are set up for, I think, and I know Councilmember Khalid has been very vocal about it, also Councilmember Gilliard, but I think all of the other council members have mentioned that was a part of the process that they really enjoyed. From the records that I have, you did it during the budget hearing process, which is why those processes are set up after the submission so that you can receive that insight. So it doesn't change.
And so the last one was just a statement. I saw the last slide about budget priorities, and I saw that the police was at the top. When we did our budget priorities, and I know we're going to have a workshop on the 17th, we placed parks as the #1 priority. That does not mean that parks gets it gets most of the money. 50% of our budget goes to public safety, and we only spend about 8% on parks. But when we look at how crime is committed, a lot of the crime in our city tends to be juvenile crime, and I don't think that we can police our way out of that. That our kids really need more to do, or maybe they need ways to get to the things that we have for them to do. But I just want to make sure that we continue to prioritize improving our park system and our access for young people to have positive outlets to do things. Because otherwise, we'll just continue spending more and more money on police to arrest our young people. So that's it.
Mr. Skillion.
I have a few questions. And the first one is under roles and responsibilities. I didn't see the controller. So that position was missing. That was the first thing. The second one, and I know that I'm constantly talking about this, the council, not the council, but the city doesn't have a strategic plan. So I know that we have priorities that we set up for over a 12 to 18 month period. But we never decided whether or not those were going to be strategic goals. And so that's something that we really need very desperately. Because when I think about the capital improvement program and long-range planning, I don't know how you do it without that strategic plan that, help you get along the way.
Ben, you want to talk through the mic? You're not coming through.
It's not going through. Can you hear me now? You can hear me now? Oh, okay, we got it. Did everybody hear what I said?
No.
Or do I need to? So let me just say it real quick. I was talking about the strategic plan, and it's really difficult to do long-range planning, capital planning, or any kind of planning if you do not have that plan in place. And so the quicker we can get to that, the better off we'll be. Then I said the roles and responsibilities. The comptroller was not in the list. So the comptroller has to have some role and responsibility in the whole process. And then the last one is the budget. When does the budget overview go to the departments? How do they participate in the process? And I think what you said was that they meet with the city manager, go through the process, and then finally it gets to us during the public hearing when they come and meet with the council. Is that what I heard?
All right, so if I may address all three questions. So there was a document, this is my third month with the city, that's why I wasn't part of the process last year, but there was a document presented to me that I have in my briefcase that said Council Strategic Plans and Goals from July of 2017. So that was the document we used in helping to formulate the budget. In terms of the involvement of the different department directors, back on April 25th, we had a budget kickoff where we basically went over the process with them, explaining how they should go about taking inventory of their department, of their needs, how to do the justification. We guided them on how to complete the forms. We provided them with their prior year budget and their prior year expenditure to guide them in making requests for the new fiscal year. In terms of the controller role, because the city has a budget manager and a controller, the controller role will mostly be focused on internal controls and really preparing for the year-end audit And she would participate as well as the department in preparing her budget for that department. But really, the role of the preparation of the budget falls under me. As a controller, her role is primarily the internal controls and day-to-day operations of the finance and accounting department. And I feel like I missed a bit.
Let me do one thing, Ms. Gibbs. You want to speak on strategic plan?
I can. I've spoken to Ms. Gilliard. We actually met this week, and so we are in the process of acquiring, and we're working with the Carl Vinson Institute to coordinate the strategic planning sessions, which is a little different than what you've done before. And so through a partnership with them, we're working with GMA to start with the budget priority. So what the Carl Vinson Institute has asked is that the council members come together and refresh their budget priorities, because you're in a different place than you were before. You now have transportation coming on board, you have parks, you have a lot of different activities that you didn't have when you did this before. And so putting those budget priorities together is number one. You'll take those, and then the consultant from the Carl Vinson Institute that we'll be working with will do a one-day session and then multiple sessions to get you to a robust strategic plan. So we're in the process of finalizing that. So I don't want you to look at your budget planning as a separate activity from your strategic plan. It is all a part of one strategic plan. So on July 16th, you would have officially begun the strategic planning process.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackson, I'm sorry. Okay, Ms. Guns.
So this is to the city manager. For the open house, of course, last year we didn't have this part of the plan. Can you speak to exactly what the open house is and what you expect to accomplish?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think what we don't want to do is present a budget to the council that is not full and robust. And so not only are we hearing from our staff about their, I guess, administrative priorities, we're also through this open budget process, which I think, and I know not every council member, but I think I've talked to about 3 or 4 of our council members, and I know Councilmember Khalid actually kind of championed this process during our last meeting, making sure that the public has multiple avenues to be able to contribute to the budget process. So this is one of about 4 opportunities that they will have. One, we'll be releasing a survey to capture some priorities from our public, and we'll do that similar to the memo that I sent you guys, some of the informational memos that I sent you guys over the last week. We'll send you one that highlights the actual survey, the budget survey, so you can spread it to your constituents as well. But we'll be releasing that. The second piece is 3, I guess, regionally located open budget forums, where it's kind of like the open budget game. And so I know we've talked about it, but it's very simple. We'll give them a nominal amount of money. We will show them where we allocated funding last year into, let's say, 5 large buckets. And then we will have them go through an exercise where they allocate funding to those activities. I think the interesting part of it isn't so much them allocating the money, but for them to prioritize and identify what their priorities are for the city. We will then have a short period of time to take that into consideration and incorporate it into our budget. And I think Ms. Haynes did a good job of talking about, you know, the different responsibilities, because she also has to craft a budget book where we will take some of this feedback and show, all right, here's our budget, and this is what we consider in the budget. So we looked at these administrative priorities, we looked at the feedback from the public, we looked at our past spending, and this is why we crafted it in this way. And then provide you all of that detailed information along with just the nuts and bolts of the budget.
Councilwoman Willis. It's not mad she's taking.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank you, City Manager Odie. I wanted to make sure I like the format, first of all, because I do recall us doing the budget hearing last year, And I do recall, including the public, when there was a lot of incomplete information given out. And we did not have as many departments transition over as we do now. Our transition is nearly complete. And so one of the reasons Parks and Rec rose to the top is because that was going to be one of the major departments that we had to transition over. And we wanted to make sure that that was a priority, but that's not to say that's going to be a priority this year. We went through an exercise, and that's how we came up with our strategic, our priorities. So I would assume that we would do the same for this year for fiscal 19. And our priorities may stay the same, or they may change. They may change based on the departments that have transitioned over.
Okay. All right. Mr. Baker.
Actually, Councilwoman Willis shared a lot of my sentiments, but there was one thing that I did want to correct from earlier. We actually had those hearings prior to the budget hearings when we met with Chief Few and everybody else, all of the department heads. It was about a month prior to our budget hearings. Okay. And it was in this room prior to, right up front. We all said it was very informal. Another thing was kind of like to echo in reference to the Parks and Rec. I think Parks and Rec became a priority only because the initiatives that we, our sentiments were addressed towards Parks and Rec based off the workshop that we had was the only place that it would actually fall under. So if we were talking about initiatives for youth or things of that nature, it would actually fall under Parks and Rec as opposed to any other department. So it appeared optically that we were more strategically planning to enhance Parks and Rec. However, it wasn't necessarily the case. It was just for the sake of putting or placing those priorities under a department.
Okay.
I guess I would have one question as well. Well, I guess a question and comment. I think, one, you'll have an opportunity to address, and I don't know how things were prepared prior, but I know through this strategic planning session, there are a couple of things that I think you're probably going to have an interest in from talking to you individually. So I think capital improvements is something that you guys are very interested in and want to provide input on. And I think as we look at how to allocate capital funding, it's important that you look at priorities. I won't give away all of the secret sauce, but when we looked at the different feedback from council and then the feedback from our staff, it would take an additional $72 million to cover all of the requested capital improvements. So it doesn't mean that you wouldn't handle them all. And I know that, our citizens want certain things, we want certain things, council wants certain things, but, you do these 5-year budgets, or we may be able to condense into 3-year capital budgets. So you get a lot of opportunities to look at that. I think secondly, also just looking at council inquiries, it always focuses around what we are bundling as transportation/public works. And so that's another area that has a lot of costs associated with it, but it also depends on your model. And so this time, when you have your one-day session, it will not only focus on establishing your priorities, but also your planning and implementing those priorities. Does that make sense? So I think this opportunity might be a little more robust than what you may have done in the past. Hopefully, that's the plan for it.
I will end this conversation with Councilwoman Jackson.
And I think I've already sent something to you, but what I would, you can hear me? Okay. I think I might like this process, but the only problem that I'm gonna have with this is Burdette is first, and they're this Saturday, and I really don't think that's enough time to give our constituents, to come out on Saturday. Just saying this is going out today, and for them to have the input that I think we need to have, because I really feel we've been left behind for a lot of years, and it's time to play catch up, and I don't want us on the losing end once again.
Understood. And respectfully, I definitely received that. I will say, probably wasn't our plan to condense things like this, but I think, you know, through the memo I sent you guys about the taxes that we included, we received our tax digest probably a little later than we would have liked to. I'd also say, I think when we look at, it's no secret that I think administratively we agree with you. And so that's why the mayor's walk was strategically scheduled for this period of time, so that not only can we alert people through the emails and the mail and all of these different tools, but also by going into the community and pushing those folks to know what we're doing. And also, even though it's in Burdette, we've got 3 open budget meetings as well as some additional activities. So I think there are, under the circumstances, adequate ways to get engaged. And I would say previously there wasn't this opportunity at all, so we just wanted to keep incorporating things. And we won't capture the full 100,000 people responses through this piece, but we're going to keep adding different opportunities for them to be engaged. And so we won't stop with this. I'd also say we scheduled those places and facilities. It has been a challenge in doing so, because we wanted to do more budget sessions as well. So I definitely received the constructive criticism and encouragement, but I do think that we put together a process to capture quality responses through this activity.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Haynes.
I think Ms. Rao would like to speak, Mr. Mayor.
So,
Councilmember Rao.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
Yes, this is a follow-up to I think some of the comments. I know last year when we did engage our department heads that we had significant feedback in terms of some of the capital needs. So from a standpoint, were those presentations, which were pretty extensive and they were by departments, were they taken into consideration, or are they being looked at all as you, the city manager prepares the capital improvement plan? Because, you know, we didn't adopt one last year.
Yes, ma'am. So there are, so I normally would not do this because I haven't had a chance to talk with staff just yet, but there are 2 things that I'm going to require and request of them to do. So I think originally we were going to submit a budget and have our capital plan, et cetera, as a part of it. But we're also going to show the capital need so that you can see the full breadth of what is being asked for. Because I think while we may have a recommendation that we bring to council about capital improvements, one of the best practices I've seen is to really be able to highlight how deep the need is, because I think I do not know if we will be able to do this because of time, but also the thought is to have it broken down into categories, because you may have a maintenance related capital plan, you may have an equipment related capital. So I think that we will bring that forward, and one of the things that we're asking GMA to do as a part of your training is to also break down how you can choose to approve your budget, because what we could do is approve the number and type of projects, and you can ratify the actual capital portion of the budget at a later time. So I would ask that you provide us time to make sure we get you the right information into the budget. I'll answer your question and say, yes, it was considered, but through the process, I think the capital portion will be something that you have an opportunity to hone in on. And in short, yes, those things were considered, but you actually, now that you own all of these things, the issues that were relayed to you in 17 may have expanded a bit.
And thank you for that. I think it's very important that we document the needs, because I think sometimes we talk in generalities, but I know, having done the tour of the park system, sometimes there may be the perception that certain facilities, may be better or worse off, but there's needs across the entire city. And so I do appreciate your commentary relative to looking at needs relative to those proposals that are before coming.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilwoman Rao. And thank you once again, for what you've done. Ms. Scruggs?
The next item is fiscal year 2019 tax digest recommendations presented by CFO Frank Milazi.
Good evening, Mayor and the City Council. The main aim of presenting this 2018 tax digest is to ask the Council to allow us to proceed with the advertisement as well as the public hearings. We cannot go ahead with public hearings of the tax digest without you go ahead, without allowing us to go ahead. So whatever I'm going to present here is to seek your go ahead so that we can try to make advertisement of the 2018 tax digest. What you are going to allow us will be the maximum for 2019 fiscal year. You can only go down, but you cannot go up of what you are going to authorize.
This is an action item?
It will be, I'll present here, but at the end of it, in the 7 o'clock, the city manager will have.
Okay, good. All right.
It's starting now, but he will ask it at
Right.
7 o'clock
Okay.
meeting. So as you remember, last year, 2017, the state adopted 7.149 mils for its operations, while Fulton County took portion of it, that was 4.430, for a combined of 11.579 mils. And Fulton County took that 4.430 for the services they provided to city from January 2017 through April 2017. And that 7.149 mils last year gave us approximately $14 million because it was not enough to meet the needs. We had to take tax at a time, about $12 million that is yet to be paid. So this is the calculation for what we had last year. The 2018 proposal millage rate is 11.579 mils, which is the same rate combined, as I said, combined of the 7.149 plus the 4.430. However, due to rise in the property values, this rate will result in a higher assessment, and as a result, it will be considered as a tax raise. The following calculation shows the proposed rate as that's 2018 tax digest. So the calculation is 7.149. That was the one that we adopted last year, and minus the 1.960 equals to rollback of 5.189. This is depending on considering 7.149. This is what we would have been adopting to proceed with this year's millage rate. But this one does not include the 4.430 that Fulton County did adopt for their services they provide to the city. Should the city maintain the single rate without the portion that was charged by Fulton County, it will need to reduce the level of services being proposed in the 2019 because the money that we will get from 7.149 will not be enough. So this is the calculation based on the 7.149. As you will see here, 7.149 will raise this year. Last year it raised $15 million. This year, because of the increase in assessment, the same 7.149 is going to raise $25.5 million. If you get into the rollback, which is 5.189, it's going to raise $18.5 million. This is just to illustrate what was last year, rollback of 1.960, that brings us to 5.189. But the proposal or the request that the staff and management are asking the council is to consider the 11.579, which is a combination of what we adopted last year, 7.149 plus the 4.430. that Fulton County used. Combined of the two, there's no raise of tax as to what it was last year. So the request is just to say, can you allow us to do what we did last year, 11.579. With that, if we get the, in 2018, as the budget director said that we did make adjustment in May, revenues in 2018 we're expecting to receive about $43 million. The best we can do may be up to $45 million. And total expenditures will be $52 million. Net position will be shortfall of $9.6 million. We are expecting to borrow $10 million that you already approved, but we are trying our best not to get to full $10 million. We may get $5 million, we may get $6 million. So far, we are having our foot down, but if it doesn't, we'll go up to a maximum of $10 million. If we get that $10 million, we have a fund balance, beginning fund balance of $6.1 million in negative, as the auditors presented that we ended up in red of $6.1 million. Having borrowed the $10 million, we end up negative $5.7 million. That will be 2018. In 2019, if you approve those, we are asking 11.579. We're going to raise revenue of $77 million. With that, we will have expenditures of 58, and we will have a surplus of $19 million. But we will have to pay by December 31st, $12 million to, that's the time that we borrowed. We have to pay by December. With that, we will have a beginning balance of $5.7 million, and that we will end up in black. That will be 8,042. That will be end of 2019. And we're expecting 2020, we'll have our revenues will go up to $79 million, and we will have a total expenditures of 58, and we will have a surplus of $21 million. But we will have to pay the $10 million that we are going to borrow this year. If we take the entire $10 million, we are planning to take less than, but should we take $10 million, we have to pay that one in 2020. That will be the end of the borrowing. From 2020, we should be up in black, and we will end up in 2020 with a $12 million surplus.
Okay. Let me say this, and thank you for your report. Two things I want to say actually to the public. Number one is, anytime we're talking about budget and preparing the budget, there's a tentative budget and there's an actual budget.
Correct.
Unless we do a lot of great things, Mr. Lee, and agree totally on the budget when it first comes around, then we're doing good, but I've never seen that happen. So we may post a budget that might blow your mind. But understand that that is a tentative budget. And when do we post a tentative budget?
As soon as the manager brings the budget to you, it's a tentative budget.
But there's a date specific we're supposed to have the final budget. All right? The other thing I want to tell you is, when it comes, you made the point I wanted to emphasize. When it comes to millage rate, you can never go beyond where you already are.
That's correct.
If you're at 11 point whatever it is,
579.
you can only go down. You can't go up. And so I want to make that clear to people. You know, that's the way this thing has always gone. And I guarantee the first budget, Mr. Baker, we put out, people are going to be calling us. Calling you all kind of names. But until you get to that final budget, through that compensation, you know, then you probably deserve the name they're going to call you. But, and for this deal, we can't raise it. We cannot raise it no more than what it is right now. All right? Any other comments? Thank you so much, Mr. Milazi.
Hold on, Mr.
Is there anybody? I'm sorry.
I have a question, I'm sorry.
Okay, good. Cool. Did we get in our colleagues up?
Yes.
Okay. While you working on that, go ahead on, Mr. Green.
What are you asking us to decide about exactly tonight?
So the city manager, what I've presented here, the city manager will request the council to approve us to go ahead to have the tentative approval of the 11.579 to fund the services that are to be provided in 2019.
Right.
So once that one has been approved, we can go ahead and start making those public hearings. There will be 3 public hearings. And we will go with that 11.579 until the 24th of, I think it's 11 September, when you finally adopt it. That will be the millage rate.
And so I think a great point for that is that today you're not accepting it. This is just for the tentative piece so that you can move forward and evaluate it through your public hearing so you can change it. It is just to start the process of acceptance.
No, I got it. You can't make a budget if you don't know the budget.
Yes, sir.
And again, the budget, everything now until it's presented to you is the city manager's budget. Once it comes to you, it's still fluid. You make a lot of changes, up and down, until you approve it. Then that's where the millage rate will be.
All right, so if y'all don't like it, y'all hear it. It's his budget.
Okay, so we have one of our colleagues who is,
She's here. Ms. Rao?
Ms. Rao?
Yes, I had a question. I noticed that there was a significant decrease projected in the 2018 exemptions. I'd like Mr. Milazi to speak to that. And as well as, is there any, is it anticipated that the county would impose any tax levy for the SSD? I know our deadline to transition is November, but that goes a little bit into the next fiscal year, so at least 1 month. So I was just trying to get clarification on that. And thirdly, the 2019 projected has, of course, more expenditures. Is there just a placeholder numbers and we'll decide what that is, and is that difference attributed to the capital improvement
So
budget?
in 2018, as you said, that there were a lot of revenues because we have no history. We didn't know anything. So by mid of the fiscal year, in March, we reviewed and we found out that by any means, some revenues we were never to get them. We will never collect them. So we made those adjustments. And making those adjustments, it has helped us that losing those revenues, we put down our feet on expenses. So losing revenues, control of expenses helped us to have at least some savings on the expenses side. That made us not to borrow money since last year. You approved $10 million last November, but we controlled expenses that made us to be where we are now. So in 2019, our projections are only what we have received because now we have a history of revenues, and there will be some revenues that we have double-checked that we're going to get them. And yes, on the capital side of it, on the expenditure side, the manager pointed out that we had about $30 million of capital improvement needs. But those needs, we cannot meet all of them in 1 year. So it will be you, once the city manager has presented the budget to you, look into, having listened to the department heads, if they will, which ones can you get into funding in this first year? What are the things that can wait? There are some things that cannot wait. So that's what you'll be doing during the public hearing and discussions. And whatever he presents may entirely be completely different to what it will come up after you are going through it.
That's correct. Okay. Is that okay, Ms. Rao? Okay. We appreciate you, Mr. Milazi. At this time, I take
I have one follow-up question. I just want to be clear. I see that we had like a rollback, millage rate. Is it in fact that we're proposing, and I see analysis over a couple of years of 11.57 mills to keep it where it is. Is it the city manager's recommendation that we're looking at 11.579, or are you looking back with the rollback based on the increased property assessments of 9.619?
No,
So
it's
I
the
pointed
11.
it out in the presentation to say that even though it's 11.579, but it looks much, much higher because of the assessment that have taken place. So we are asking for 11.579 now. So if there will be a time that you may need to see, okay, because of these increases, we may need to reduce half a mil, that will be there. You can reduce that from 5.79, half a mil or a mil, but as of, you can't go up. That's the reason we are asking for maximum. You can go down, but you can't go up.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you, Mr. Milazi.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn to executive session for personnel.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to add delegation to
Litigation.
Okay.
All right. Personnel and litigation. Okay.
I'll wait for you to
This
call
is
for
discussion.
discussion.
This is discussion.
Okay, how do we do that with this?
Let me do it.
The Skype, they can go.
We're gonna be able to bring our colleagues into executive session?
We already have that handled through Milazi.
Okay, then, let's go into executive session. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Guess that's your answer.